Okay, we will go ahead and get started. So, hello again, everyone. Feels like, just yesterday we were meeting regularly to talk about all things spring. And um, what I think now we're in the third week, fourth week. I don't know. I've lost counts. We're now at the point that where, spring is great, but now we got to figure out what we're doing moving forward. So, feels like we're living, three different timelines all at the same point. So I did a few kind of just quick housekeeping things before we jump in. If you did not notice the email that I sent out earlier this week and in the meeting requests, we did set up a team for this meeting, for this recurring meeting, where we're going to track the presentations. I'll upload copies of the presentations, the documentation. So instead of going back through, your chat within Teams and trying to find everything, we'll tie everything to the actual team for this group. If you didn't already, there's a code and directions in that email about how you can join this team. Totally up to you. We did not add everybody all at once. One, because that's a lot of people to add individually, and two, because we wanted to let you decide if it makes the most sense. I will continue to post the video recordings of the presentation or of each meeting on our website as well. So you'll still have access, and others will still have access to that information in multiple places. But I did want to make reference to that before we got too far into the conversation. So today's really going to be a little more targeted towards the advising side. And I know I mentioned that in my original email. If you noticed, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Yesterday morning, I did add, I think it was yesterday morning or Wednesday after, regardless, whatever day it was, I added a few agenda items to the Teams page, and I tried to add this to the meeting invite earlier today, just as a point of reference as well. So I'll work to try to get that information up there as early before each meeting as possible, just so everybody has an understanding of what we will be covering, knowing that it'll still span a variety of topics. And for some, it's important to hear everything. For others, it may be more important to attend one versus another point in time. So I want to start by just kind of thanking, again, just a general thank you to so many of you who have been continuing to offer thoughts and feedback and ideas and suggestions, just about, kind of everything in general. Obviously, we spent a lot of time in the fall talking about what was going to happen in the spring, what we knew was going to happen, what we knew maybe wasn't going to happen, and unknowns and questions that still needed answered. I think for fall, we're in a similar space, and I know I'm skipping over an entire term when we're talking about this because summer's still out there. We're in the process of starting registration for that. There's still unknowns about summer. And I was just in a meeting earlier today with John Gibson, and we were talking about some of this as well. So I fully acknowledge that, I'm not ignoring summer, but I want to spend a little more time focusing on fall just because there are other components and moving parts related to the summer component. One of the things, or a couple of things that we know about fall, and that I've shared previous conversations, the decision's been made that there will not be a separate online only experience. So all of those courses for fall 20 and spring 21 that had the OL as a part of the course, those won't exist for fall 21. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't have classes delivered online. That's still part of the conversation. And as my team's working with the departments and gathering course information to build a schedule, obviously that's part of the conversation as well. But we know that that's going to look and feel different. And we'll continue to talk a little bit more about that as we go throughout the rest of this semester in preparation for fall. A lot of decisions, a lot of conversations that have happened and are continuing to happen, taking feedback and guidance and recommendations and requests and good and bad experiences, particularly from many in the advising community. So directly from UUAA, talking with head advisors. I know many of you have been connecting with myself as well as other members of my office directly. And again, I just want to say a quick thank you for all of the time and energy that you were putting in and providing that feedback, the thoughts, the ideas, ideas, the recommendations. I am trying to be much more intentional about, our approach to this work and our processes, and trying as much as we can not to feel like we're changing something every day. And I say that knowing that we will still have things change what feels like every day, maybe sometimes more than once in a day. But I want to try to, while there's still a lot of unknowns about fall and there's still a lot of moving parts happening, I also know that we all can, and certainly a big part of this is on our side, need to be more intentional in the, conversations and in the work that's happening. And so, we're talking about different ways of doing things differently and, functionality and processes and procedures, et cetera. But I also know that I'm going to try as kind of on our side within the Office of the Registrar to be more intentional and think about the timing and the impact of those changes or of doing something different. And this is something that I've talked with a number of you about as well, and engaged directly with Sandy Monroe and her team, and also the head advisors. And this will be something that we'll continue to talk about. But also our advisory board, which is representative of all of the colleges across campus, kind of being that, as the name says, advisory board on feedback and ideas and suggestions. And so that'll be a group that we'll continue to engage and interact with as well. So all of that said, I do want to show you, I have a little bit of show and tell, and then really I wanted to make sure we left time for just some kind of open-ended Q&A at this point, because I know there's still a lot of questions, and as usual, we will try to answer everything that we can, but there's probably some things that we still don't know all of the answers to yet. The first thing I want to mention is there are a couple of updates happening within the MyPurdue portal. And so some of these already went into production. Actually, one of them already went into production last night, and others are going into production this weekend when there is an update behind the scenes. And so I can't show you the actual live version of this yet, but I am going to show you what it's going to look like for one of these. So bear with me while I share my screen real quick. And so what I'm showing you right now is we are working on the registration tab within MyPurdue. We're working to clarify a little bit some of the language, and we're actually adding another link available as well. So under register for classes, there's a series of links available, and one of those says add or drop classes. I know on the customer service side within the registrar's office, this creates a lot of questions when we get past the point of students being able to add or drop classes, because they click on that link, it takes them to Banner, and they're not able to add or drop classes using Banner based on the timeline and where we are in the calendar. And the first thing that students do, rightfully so, is they tend to email the registrar's office and say, why can't I do this? Because where they should go is in the scheduling assistant and unit time based on the timing of the calendar. So what's going to happen this weekend is we're going to try to tighten up the labeling and the language of this a little bit. So where it currently says add or drop classes, we're going to change the name of that link to self-service Banner. A little bit lower, you'll see there's going to be a link that currently says use scheduling assistant. We're going to add to that descriptor and say for registration, add, drop, or grade mode credit hour changes to be a little more descriptive, and that'll take students directly into the scheduling assistant within unit time. And then we're adding a new link there at the bottom, hopefully, again, a little more descriptive, just simply saying use course request form for submitting course requests for pre-registration. None of this is new functionality or anything that's different. It's just trying to be a little more direct and a little more clear. And quite honestly, to try to reduce some of the questions that students ask, because if they click that add or drop link and then ask us why I can't do it, we're just pointing them directly to Unitime and the scheduling assistant anyways. So again, I just wanted, knowing I'd have a good amount of people here, just wanted to make reference to this, knowing that the changes will go into production over this weekend. So starting on, I think, Monday morning, I believe these will be reflected within Unitime and available within my Purdue. I'm sorry, within my Purdue, not within Unitime. The other piece I wanted to show real quick is also in my Purdue, and yeah, the CRF link takes them directly to the in Unitime, where they would be able to log in and pull up their information. So again, it's all pointing to the same places that already exist. It's just trying to make it a little clearer if they happen to go there versus all of the other places that this information currently exists. The other thing I wanted to show real quick is some information that's available currently, but also information in response to some previous conversations that we had back in fall semester. So within my Purdue, in the advising tab, for those of you that have access to this information, many of you already know that down here in the course catalog resources area, there's a current course prerequisite report. So this is still there, nothing's changed. You go in here, we don't have anything for fall yet, since we don't have a schedule of classes out yet. But if you go in, you can pull up, any department, and you can see all of the prerequisites that are tied to the courses for the term that you're selecting. So this is out there, still available. This is also accessible clearly within the course catalog itself. But what was added last night and what is new is this new sections restriction report. Now in the fall, this was a conversation that I had maybe with head advisors. I know we touched on it in some of these groups as well. And we spent part of a meeting talking about that this information is accessible in Cognos, and you can pull reports out of Cognos. This now is another way to access this information. So if you click on the sections report link, and it did that to me earlier, and I just had to close it and re-click it again. So now I'm going to pick, again, I'm going to pick Spring 21 just because I can use it as an example. And if I wanted to go in there and see what restrictions exist for a particular department, so I'm going to pick on my friends in AAE because they're at the top of the alphabet, you can see by section all of the restrictions that are currently in place for these courses and for these sections. So I know a lot of times we have conversations, and I'll give you an example. So one of the more most often kind of questions that the pre-reg team receives is, why did this student that's a 6 or a 7 get a class that, or let's say a 5 or a 6 get a class that a 7 or an 8 did not get? So I thought we, a graduating senior, should have been given that seat before, that other student. In many cases, it's because there were restrictions on the courses, whether it was a major restriction, or something else. Now, not every case, but that's one example that we see a lot of. So in this example, you can go in and look and say, okay, for this section of AAE 200, you must be a major and you must be, enrolled in one of the following classifications. So, sophomore, 30 to 44, 45 to 59 hours. Every section, if you go in right now and look at fall 20 or spring 21, every section is going to have restrictions either saying must be assigned or must not be assigned to one of the following cohorts. And those are the OL students, because we had to add these to keep those students from, getting classes they should not have been able to get. For fall, because we won't have a separate OL section, this is actually going to help clean this report up, because all of those restrictions now will disappear, because that's not something that's going to be used in the fall. So our hope is that this information will be helpful as you might be talking with students and advising and looking at what courses. If you're looking at individual sections, this information is going to be out there. The nice thing about this, so the Cognos report can be exported in an Excel file where it's really easy to sort and filter based on information you're looking at, but it's only as up to date as Cognos is updated. This is actually pulling directly from Banner. And so if, Jill Manuel's team goes in and changes a restriction on a particular section, this is consider this a dynamic interface. So it's going to show, it's going to reflect here basically immediately, as opposed to when Cognos is being updated. So again, not necessarily new information, just a different way to access some of this information that we hope will be helpful, especially if you're having conversations about particular sections and maybe different restrictions that are out there and applicable for students. I'm going to pause real quick and jump back to the chat just to see. Okay, I see Morgan got kind of I think your question got answered from Kim. So in theory, it would be easier than that, but that's not always that way in reality. So Isabel, and I think I'm going to start talking and then someone on the pre-reg team can correct me if I'm wrong. So for students that are still online, it would be better to choose a section at a specific time that makes sense with their time zone. Would there be something in the system that would allow them to prioritize a section over another? Regardless of the reason why, when students are filling out the course request form, once the schedule is published, students are able to indicate specific sections on the course request form. So if it needed to be for a specific time reason or whatever the case, that is a possibility on the course request form, but once the schedule is published. So again, if you're advising a student right now, we don't know all of the sections that are going to be available, the CRNs, because we're still working on that. But that would be something, again, for whatever reason, is a possibility. And Holly actually just helped answer that it can be done, and that's a good reminder. So if anyone has questions about how this works, please contact the pre-reg team directly, because we can set up trainings to make sure that everybody understands the functionality behind the scenes. Okay, Kurt, for scheduling assistant link in CRF, is this linking them directly to the landing page in Unitime for either spring or summer? Page.
Hey, Keith, I think I know that.
Yeah, go for it.
I was gonna clarify that. The reason there's two different links for Unitime is I think some of you are pulling your hair out because students are saying, I can't get to spring 21. And that's because when they click on the use scheduling assistant link right now, it's defaulting to the CRF, which is fall 21. And you naturally want to go to the term and click on that to change the term, because that's what it says. Click here to change term. But it's in the CRF, not in the scheduling assistant. And so the CRF is only valid for fall, hence why they can't change the term. So we're creating two distinct links. One is sending them to the scheduling assistant page where they can choose spring or summer. The other will send them to the appropriate term for the CRF.
Thank you. That was much clearer than it was going to be if I tried to walk through that. Let's see. And Jennifer, I just saw, I was scrolling back up. I don't know if anyone answered your. Okay, yeah, so it looks like we're still unsure on your question. So the emergency contact hold link, if it had been added back to My Purdue, I know right around the holiday, right around winter recess, there was, and now I'm trying to say this from memory, there was some confusion about students who had cleared for emergency contact and or financial responsibility, that the hold was then placed back on accidentally and then it was removed. I don't know, Jennifer, if that is the situation that you're referring to, but I do know we checked in with the Bursar's office and there was some confusion and they were able to get it cleared up. So if you have any examples or someone specific, feel free to send that directly to me and we can take a look at that. But I haven't heard anything new or different about any of the holds being removed, being put back on, or the links that are out there. But if you do see something on your side, let us know and we can help take a look at that. Okay, sorry, I had to get back to remember where I was on the agenda. So next thing I want to show real quick is something that's new on our website, the Registrar website, and we're calling it the Course Projections Shortfall List. And so let me share. And the website link for this, the direct link for this, I put in the agenda. And obviously it's accessible through our website as well. So on our Registrar website now, what you see is this information that is provided to us by associate deans on campus will help identify where course demand is currently not being met. The idea is to help promote information on alternatives and including information on alternatives and when solutions are listed when known and available. We just launched this site, so there's obviously not a lot of information on there yet, but as this information is known and identified, we'll be adding this information on here. As the description states, the goal is to help isolate these challenges as early as possible to help pinpoint resources to address unmet course demand. If you identify a course on the list that will affect degree progression, we're asking people to reach out directly to Josie to talk through options. So if you're working with a student, we know that based on this list, there's a shortfall, there's unmet demand that we know that's out there. It is a course that the student just has to have. Maybe it's marked as critical in the plan of study, maybe it's not, but for whatever reason, it's a course that the student really has to have. Reach out to Josie ahead of time so that we can talk about options available and how we can try to support this. Again, this information is an attempt to try to provide the advising community, the campus community, as much of this information as possible as early as we are aware of it. This is, kind of one more step towards a true dynamic dashboard, maybe someday on our wish list of having all of this information accessible in a truly dynamic, real-time way. But again, it's just an attempt to try to get out there. But one of the things that this will also do that we hope will be helpful is, if it's on this list, including the reason. So in this case, the course just simply isn't going to be offered, but then any possible resolution. So in this case, any alternates, any other solutions when we identify those. So again, just trying to provide as much of that information as early as possible. And as I'll continue to say over and over again, this is where as questions come up, as these are students that we know have to have these classes, that need this in order to continue to progress. Those are examples that we want people to be contacting us directly about. Either reach out to Josie directly, contact myself directly, or the pre-registration at Purdue account so that we can identify and work with you and talk through how we can manage and work on this as much as possible prior to the batch itself actually running.
Hey, Keith?
Yeah.
This is Christine Schertz. A bunch of us actually can't see the chat in Teams. Just to let you know, so if you read a question, could you please read it out? We don't have access to the chat.
Interesting. Yes, I will do that. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so on that note, let me jump back and see what questions. Okay, so we have a question is, will graduate students see the CRF link since they don't use it? If they do see it, there might be a need for notes for undergrads only. That's a good question. I don't know. We'll have to check on that if it's going to show for everybody. Yeah, let me check on that, and I will follow up to let people know. Okay. Linda says she's looking for the projection shortfall and can't find it. Is it up and running? It's on the site. So for those that can see the chat, and I apologize because not everybody's currently seeing it, I'm including the link. I'll make sure that I think if you go to faculty, staff, advisors, we may not have the actual link listed here yet, so we'll make sure to get that updated so that that gets added as well. The link itself is live, but we may not have it added to the list. Oh, it's on the pre-reg page. Thank you, Holly. Oh, there we go. So it is, so on pre-registration page under dashboard resources for advisor, course projection shortfall list with a nice big red new next to it. So that's another path you can use to get to it as well. Linda asks, this information we have for SOCH may in fact not be correct. We're still working on getting that class offered with a grad student. How will that change? So as we're aware of changes, so as these courses are identified or changes happen, we'll be updating the website. And Josie's going to be that key point of contact for these conversations as she's working directly with the associate deans and directly with departments on this as well. Okay. I do want to jump back real quick and just mention, so the last thing I had on the agenda before, just kind of the continuation of Q&A, was just reminders and updates about the advisor course recommendation form and the student CRF. Not a lot new or different than what people are already familiar with, knowing that they both opened up on Monday. I did want to make reference in our last meeting where we came together and talked about updates for the advisors. I think I did share that we were adding actually, I apologize because I don't think everybody's heard this. We now have standard language that's being added to the advisor course recommendation form. And this comes directly from feedback received from head advisors, reminding, so when you access it, there's a reminder in there about checking for holds, about the timing and deadlines. That is not published yet. That will show up after upgrades happen this weekend. So I know some of you have reached out asking, I thought this was going to be added. I don't see it yet. You're absolutely right. It'll show up starting next week once all of these upgrades go into effect over the weekend. So I apologize. There was a little lag in announcing those changes and actually not having them updated yet and showing. So starting next week, you should see those pre-populated notes appear and accessible when you log in to view that information. Margaret, are you asking will the MyProduce screenshots be updated with these changes? Are those the screenshots that we have out there for training purposes? Is that what you're referring to? If that's the question, yes. Okay, perfect. Yes, for student questions. Yeah, so we'll make sure that we work to get everything up, to get all of the information updated on our side as well, so that any training documentation we have matches with what students are actually going to see. Yeah, so that they know what it is they're looking at, and hopefully understand what it is that they're looking at. Linda, good question. This might be a question for Tomas or Josie or Sandy. Will the pre-populated notes on the course request form change with each term? So will new dates be updated? Anything that may be term specific, will that automatically happen, or will we make updates so that they're changed term by term?
Keith, it's Holly, and the answer is yes, they will change term by term. It is on the calendar. It will be updated each semester.
Yeah, a thumbs up from Linda, so we'll consider that a win. Okay, knowing that everybody can see the chat and maybe can't ask your question, feel free to raise your hand. I'll keep an eye on that as well. So as we have time, we can go through. Okay, thank you, Jackie. Your registration links, I love the clarification. Okay, so Jackie's reposting a question. On registration links, I love the clarification for Schedule Assistant and CRF, but do we think students will know what self-service banner means? Do we not want them to use that link? It's not that we don't want them to use the link, it's that we're just trying to better clarify what it actually is and trying to help them understand where to go to accomplish whatever task they're trying to do. I acknowledge it's still a perfect approach. It's not, it's not intuitive across the board. Yeah, they don't know what that means. So, this was very, Lisa, I don't know if you have thoughts or knowing from our other conversations.
It was kind of intentional because while SSB, right, they don't know what that means. It was trying to discern the difference between, well, you can use this link for open registration, but then you need to go to this link for add and drop. But oh, you can also use this link for open registration too if you want. So while the Unitime stuff can do the same thing plus what SSB does, SSB is much more limiting. So in essence, will they know what SSB means? Probably not, but they're going to get a link that they're going to be able to actually do their business regardless. So in the end, SSB may not be used by many, and that's completely fine with me.
Okay, we got another question. Will the pre-populated dates change based on the time frame that the CRF is open? So I think I think, is this related to the pre-populated notes that we will be included?
Yeah, so I can clarify. So
yeah,
for
go
instance,
ahead, please.
If I only allow my students to make changes to their CRFs and they have to submit it within a week, is that date in the pre-populated notes going to say you have to submit this by the week end date versus I let my students make changes until the university closes all of the CRFs, and that's the date that's in the pre-populated notes?
Correct. So the what is in the pre-populated notes is the date that the CRF closes down across the university. But that pre-populated note, that text box section, will be still editable, and so advisors can put in student-specific or program-specific information. So you can still add stuff in there that is going to work for you and your students.
And just one more thing to kind of hop onto that. We're already in discussions about in the future as well, having the ability for you guys to be able to add in your own types of notes into the course request form, and you can click them and select them. So we're already talking about that to be made available, hopefully, in the near future.
Thank you both for helping clarify that. Okay. Morgan's asking, can we just name it add drop through my Purdue or something else to clarify the difference? I tend to direct students there when Unitime has technical difficulties.
That doesn't help us. That doesn't help us now because you can't use it after the first week. So we're editing the title of the link as we get through, this registration period and this registration period. For what it's worth, y'all, I do feel your pain, right? And I have been copying the developers on special registration. Anytime I have to work through an odd issue with your students because scheduling assistant isn't handling it, I am copying them and they're collecting all of these kind of edge cases to add to our list of enhancements down the road. So Unitime's not perfect. No, there are still situations where we have to do the old-fashioned Form 23 and it gets bogged down in the registrar inbox and it's terrible. And I don't disagree with that, but I think still the Unitime functionality gives us far more than what self-service banner offers us presently.
What else? Yeah, Elizabeth, can it disappear or be hidden after it's no longer useful? Possibly. I think it's the challenge with, changing the links or hiding or making them visible is aligning that with the calendar and having the developers kind of on standby to make those changes. So we can certainly talk with them. We obviously worked with them to get kind of this relabeling and some of the other links added. So we'll continue to make sure that we include this as part of that conversation as well. And for those not able to see the chat, I am following the now secondary chat that's happening with everyone saying you can't see it. I'm not sure why, but we'll try to figure out before the next meeting what the difference was between those that can see it and now those of you that are not able to pull it up. Yeah, I am honestly not sure why, so we'll have to figure that out. What sort of language is being automatically included in the CRF? It's a good question, Elizabeth. Let me show real quick the language that was and I don't know, while I'm doing this, Holly, I don't know if you or someone else has the updated language.
I do. And actually, I sent out an email this afternoon to the advisors, so I know it's in the queue. So I think it should be going out tomorrow. I think Christina releases those emails once a day. So I've got a screenshot of what it's going to look like tomorrow. So you'll be able to see it tomorrow, friends.
Perfect. Thank you, Holly. The language
it was all of the head advisors that worked together on putting that verbiage together for the pre-populated language in the CRF.
Thank you. And I'm sure, Christina, that was not an intent to call you out to release it, but that's a happy timing coincidence that you'll release it now so people will see it. So the language makes reference to clear any registration holds via My Purdue account now. Talks about submitting the course request before the deadline applicable for the term that we're registering, that we're talking about. Quick video that shows how to submit the CRF. The date and time by when students will receive their schedule via email, and then date for open registration. Okay, bear with me because I'm now getting questions in 2 different chats. So let me make sure I'm trying to catch all of these. Good. This is a good question. Holly, if you're still there, will fall pre-populated language change for STAR students with new dates?
You betcha.
Thank you. Oh yeah. Thanks, Christina. That was the question I just saw pop up from the other chat as well. Okay, so given the pause in questions in both chats and no one raising their hand yet, I'm going to formally end the meeting. So I'm going to thank everyone again, stop the recording, but I will stick around for the next couple minutes just in case anything else comes up. Again, the purpose will meet every other week now with the goal of having a little more content. And as I said, for those that are interested, check out the Teams page for the agenda ahead of time, and I'll work to add the agenda topics to the meeting invite as well. The recurring meeting invite that was already sent out, I think I can add those for just the individual meetings prior to each one. So thanks for joining us this afternoon.